Part 7. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 61. When Wu Yu rushed back to Wudu, it was already noon. The news of the battle between the two immortals and the destruction of Shangan Palace had spread throughout the country, and the whole of Dongguo was in great turmoil. Just from Wudu, it can be seen that the once prosperous streets have become deserted, and many people hide in their houses and do not go out. In the whole Wudu, the only person Wu Yu cares about is Princess Wu Yu. No one can threaten him except her, so Wu Yu quickly came to Wu Yu Palace. He wanted to hide Wu Yu first. After returning, Wu Yu quickly told Wu Yu what he saw and heard. Haoshan is so cruel that he actually persuaded Zhang Junlin to kill you. Wu Yu was nervous and frowned slightly. Haoshan gave him a big gift. Zhang Junlin will certainly not be polite to accept this favor. Fortunately, I chased him to check, otherwise I would not have time to escape. After seeing the Shengsheng fruit today, Wu Yu realized how determined Zhang Junlin was to kill him on the spot for Haoshan. The identity of Tongtian sword sect disciple is useless. What are your plans? Wu Yu was still calm and said, let's put off the revenge for a few days. I'll take you out of Wudu first. Wu Yu knew that time was urgent, so he packed up casually, made arrangements for Mi Shang and the others, and followed Wu Yu out of the city. Wu Yu was now physically strong, and carrying Wu Yu out of the city did not affect the speed at all. If he was not afraid that Wu Yu could not withstand the strong wind, he would probably be even faster. Leave Wudu, just make sure they can't find us. Dongguo has unlimited territory. As long as he leaves Wudu, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack for Zhang Junlin to find him again. Wu Yu hid in a high mountain, found a cave, drove away the wild beasts inside, hurriedly cleaned up, left Wu Yu with a few days of living necessities, and sat cross-legged in the corner of the cave, ready to practice. This time, he directly took out the last 4 qi condensation pills. Originally, he planned to complete the qi condensation in 2 times, in about 10 days. Wu Yu, are you in such a hurry? Seeing him rushing all the way, as if facing a great enemy, and entering a gloomy state, Wu Yu was a little worried. Time is running out. This is a crisis, but also an opportunity. Wu Yu said briefly, and then asked Wu Yu not to get close to him, and then without saying anything, he took 4 qi condensation pills directly and started the final attack. He groaned, showing a painful expression. Seeing this scene, Wu Yu beside him clenched his hands, his eyes trembling slightly. The challenge he faces is probably much more difficult than he imagined at the beginning. She deeply understood how much Wu Yu hated the Haoshan immortal. Wu Yu held up her dress and leaned against the wall of the cave. Every change of Wu Yu now was heartbreaking for her. That's right, the 4 qi condensation pills entered his body at the same time, which was simply reaching Wu Yu's limit. The rolling magma-like heat flow poured into his body, almost burning his whole body. The scorching heat flow seemed to hide the fragments of swords and was extremely sharp. It cut all the way, causing some injuries to Wu Yu's tough internal organs, tendons, and blood vessels. From the outside, the fire was rolling, as if it was about to explode. Endure. The more at this moment, the more the scene of Zai Hall was repeated in his mind. Every word that Haoshan said was the collapse of Wu Yu's whole world. Now, Haoshan still doesn't know that he is Wu Yu. He is extremely eager to tear off his mask in front of the world. He doesn't want to wait any longer. Just this time. To cultivate the Tao, you need to surrender. How can those without great perseverance be reborn under such destruction? Wu Yu gritted his teeth, guided the power of the qi condensation pill, accelerated the transformation, and gathered in the source of law. The Tanzong point on his chest was shining brightly, and the light even penetrated the rocks, making the whole mountain shrouded in light. 1 day, 2 days. Wu Yu was in a state of turmoil. She waited in the torment of worry. The heart-wrenching feeling was really uncomfortable. When she saw that Wu Yu was more resilient this time than the previous times, she knew more deeply how much anger and hatred he had in his heart. The death of Wanqing was far from being calm. Wu Yu had not slept for 4 days and was in a trance. Her body, which had just recovered a little, was now much weaker. She was really worried that Wu Yu would rush into it this time and destroy everything he had. He could have slowly condensed his qi like before. It would have taken at most 20 days. Why this time? When Wu Yu thought of this question, she just had some answers. Suddenly, Wu Yu in the cave turned into a golden light and rushed out. Brother! Wu Yu stumbled, holding up her long skirt, and limped out of the cave. Suddenly, several surrounding mountains were shaking. A golden light exploded in front of her, shining the world, and a magnificent momentum took shape between the mountains. When Wu Yu raised her head, her eyes were already wet. She saw Wu Yu, with golden light all over his body, falling from a height of 2 meters to the ground. The light had dissipated, but in Wu Yu's eyes, there was no difference between Wu Yu and a god. Sacred, domineering, surrounded by fairy mist, and not affected by worldly fireworks. Magic power. Wu Yu finally felt the magic power of the first level of the qi condensation realm. He finally had his first source of magic. In the Tanzong point on his chest, a vortex of magic power was hidden in the endless sea of magic power, constantly regenerating. With this source of magic, Wu Yu could more clearly feel the spiritual energy between the heaven and earth around him. He was already inseparable from these spiritual energy. Of course, because he has not yet practiced the qi condensation technique, his magic power is no different from ordinary people. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Coupled with mana, my strength has increased dramatically. If he can learn the qi condensation technique and Taoist techniques in the future, his combat power will probably be even stronger. There's just one thing that Wu Yu doesn't quite understand. There seems to be a whirlpool somewhere in the body, consuming mana all the time. Why is this? Is this the case all the time? Am I the one making a fuss? After all, he has not communicated with other qi condensation realms yet. Forget it, let's ignore it for now. After all, it won't affect the battle very much. Wu Yu and Haoshan had 2 fights, and were overwhelmed by each other both times. Now that he had finally succeeded in condensing qi, he couldn't wait any longer. How many days have passed? When Wu Yu returned to Wu Yu, the first question he asked was this question. 4 days. Looking at her successful brother, Wu Yu couldn't help crying. She knew better than anyone what he was carrying. 4 days. Upon hearing the news, Wu Yu showed a look of great joy. Finally, he succeeded within 4 days, shortening the time by more than half. Even the extra suffering was worth it. There are still 2 days until the shengsheng fruit matures. Wu Yu took a deep breath. In fact, when he chose to refine 4 qi condensing pills at once, he already had a plan in mind. Wu Yu, are you thinking? Wu Yu's heart beat faster and he held Wu Yu's arms. That's right, Wu Yu nodded and said, there are still 2 days before the fruit will be ripe. In these 2 days, with Zhang Junlin's personality, it is impossible to leave the Xiang Mountains. This is the only way to confirm 2 days in Zhang Junlin's position. And I happened to be in time at this moment, successfully condensing my energy, and was confident of dealing with Haoshan. The fire in his heart was burning like never before. Just like the moment when he followed Wanqing and smashed him into pulp. That's right, he felt there was no need to wait any longer. Today was the best time to destroy immortal Haoshan. Because today, Zhang Junlin must be in the Xiang Mountains. Even if the sky falls, he probably won't leave. But isn't Haoshan also in the Xiang Mountains? Wu Yu said nervously. She had too many worries. Wu Yu is so crazy. Wu Yu smiled faintly and said, Sister, why are you confused? I have many ways to make him rush back alone, for example, concubine 11 and Yuan Hao. I see. As long as Wu Yu returns to Wudu and kidnaps concubine 11 and Yuan Hao, he is not afraid that immortal Haoshan will not return. Because the fruit is about to mature, Zhang Junlin will not follow. In this way, he would have the opportunity to fight alone with immortal Haoshan. Does it have to be today? Wu Yu was in a state of confusion. She didn't know much about immortality, so it was difficult to understand who was more powerful. Sister, if you miss today, when Zhang Junlin gets the fruit of life, he will join forces with Haoshan and chase us all over the world. That way, it will be at least 10 times harder for Haoshan to die. And if he is afraid, he can just return to China Yuandaozong. I'm afraid I won't be able to destroy him in my lifetime. Wu Yu told the key. But what if something doesn't go as you expected? For example, what if the fruit ripens early and Zhang Junlin happens to have it and returns with Haoshan? What if Haoshan has many hidden cards and you are still young? Was not as cunning as him, but was killed by him. After all, Wu Yu is too young and has only been practicing Taoism for less than 2 years. How can he compare with hundreds of years? Her two assumptions are not unreasonable. Sister, first, if Zhang Junlin comes back early, I will retreat first. Second, if I can't kill Haoshan, but I am killed by him, then this is my fate. Time was running out, and even though she was worried, Wu Yu didn't have much time to discuss it. He carried Wu Yu on his back and prepared to leave. Younger brother. For Wu Yu, there will definitely be many surprises in such a war. For example, Zhang Junlin returns early. With their methods and hundreds of years of cultivation and combat experience, Wu Yu may not be able to retreat. The reason why Wu Yu took her away was because he was going to Wudu to fight. There were tigers and black bears in the mountains and forests. If he left her here, if she was not frightened by him, she would probably be in trouble for a long time. Now he is not sure how long he will fight, so he has to send Wu Yu to a place with people first. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information. /U003C /E /U003E /U003C /E /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 62. Wu Yu's worry is not unreasonable. There may be surprises regarding the maturity time of the Sheng Shengguo. But this is not the reason for Wu Yu to give up this great opportunity. Because time was urgent, Wu Yu took Wu Yu to a town near the mountain forest, which was not very far from Wudu. He found an inn, sent Wu Yu inside, and asked her to wait for him here. At most, it will only take a day or two. You can wait for me here. You can't go anywhere. It's best not to go out after all. Wu Yu doesn't have any fighting ability and can be easily killed. The towns in Dongyu State are relatively peaceful. If you stay in this inn for a day or two, it is basically impossible for anything to happen. In this desperate situation, Wu Yu could not find anyone he could trust to take care of Wu Yu. Wu Yu. Wu Yu stood inside the door, looking at Wu Yu worriedly, clasping her hands. It was obvious that she had a lot of uneasiness in her heart, and all the concern was written on her face at this time. Wu Yu, this is where he wants to challenge immortal Haoshan. As a sister, Wu Yu values his life more than her own. There is no doubt that this is the most intense adventure in Wu Yu's life so far. Once he leaves, he will not know whether he will live or die. Don't worry. It was useless to say anything at this time. Only by risking immortal Haoshan's life and coming back to see her could her worries disappear. Remember, stay here and don't wander around. I will be back as soon as possible. Having said this, Wu Yu turned around decisively, took the demon subduing stick with him, and disappeared into the town in the blink of an eye. Younger brother. Wu Yu sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes dull, and her hands trembling as she held the mattress. To her, the whole world seemed to have become quiet, except for the thumping of her heartbeat. On the first floor of the inn, more than a dozen wine tables were already occupied. Knights from the martial arts world and busy businessmen were chatting, and most of their attention was also on Wu Du. It is said that these two gods are in the sky and belong to different factions, so they have disputes. Then Shangqian Palace fell down at the first sign. It's so shocking. I have a distant cousin who works as a guard in the palace. He saw the Shangqian Palace collapse with his own eyes. I hope the fight between gods will not affect ordinary people like us. Wu Yu didn't think about tea and food, and leaned against the door, listening to the discussions of various passers-by downstairs. I'm afraid he has already arrived in Wudu. That's right, Wu Yu had already arrived in Wudu at this time. Sure enough, Immortal Haoshan and Zhang Junlin were not there. Now it is early morning, everything is recovering, and Wudu is beginning to become lively. Many shops are opening their doors, vendors are busy, and ordinary people go to the streets to work and beg for food. Wudu in the morning light has a unique peaceful beauty. Looking at the place where he grew up, Wu Yu felt mixed emotions. He stood on a tall building and looked at the palace in the distance. The magnificent palace originally belonged to him, but now it was occupied by thieves. Haoshan, UN 11, UN Hao. Now that he is holding the demon subduing stick, the fire in his hand is burning so that the demon subduing stick is red. Finally, he has waited for this moment. That night, Wu Yu's soul was shattered and everything was destroyed. He struggled on the edge of life and death several times. Until today, he has truly returned. Father, this is the country you gave me. Even if I don't want it in the future, I can't let it fall into the hands of outsiders. This is the country that my ancestors of the Wu family laid down with their lives and blood. From the time he returned to Wudu to the present day, hiding behind the demon monkey mask, Wu Yu had had enough. Oops. At that moment, Wu Yu flashed among the rooftops and jumped into the palace. He stood on the top of a palace and shouted loudly, instantly breaking the tranquility of the entire Wu city. UN 11, UN Hao, come out to see me. Boom. With the strength of Wu Yu's chest and abdomen, this violent shout made half of the palace tremble, and even half of Wu could hear it clearly. For a moment, everyone put down their work and looked at the imperial city in astonishment. That sounds like the voice of Sun Wuodao. The entire city of Wu was silent. The collapse of Shangqian Palace a few days ago was shocking enough. Could it be that today? Sun Wuodao. At this time, Yuan Hao was still attending the morning court, and UN 11 was also there, just in a different palace. When Wu Yu's voice was heard, a group of princes and ministers filed out of a side hall, led by the current Queen Mother UN 11 and Emperor UN Hao. Behind him are many generals and civil servants. Among them, Marshal Wu has also returned. Sun Wuodao, what's the matter with you? That UN 11 was wearing elegant clothes and majestic makeup. He looked like the master of the harem. He was very courageous and was not nervous because of Wu Yu's arrival. That Yuan Hao was arrogant enough. Relying on the protection of Immortal Haoshan, when he saw Wu Yu, not only did he not salute, but he also looked arrogant. He. Wu Yu gave a faint smile, landed on the ground, and approached them step by step. Seeing this, many ministers knelt down on the ground sparsely. Only UN 11 and UN Hao did not kneel down. When they saw that Wu Yu was vaguely about to get angry, their moods changed. Get nervous. Whoosh. Wu Yu grabbed a neck with one hand and lifted UN 11 and UN Hao up in full view of everyone. The faces of both of them turned pale instantly. UN Hao was so frightened that he peed his pants and said with a ferocious face, Sun Wuodao, what are you doing? If you dare to touch the mortal emperor, the immortal Haoshan will destroy you. Sun Wuodao, Please let us go quickly and tell us if you have something to say. UN11's face also turned pale. Exalted Immortal, the princes and ministers were all panicked for a moment. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. I have nothing to say. What they didn't expect was that they would get such a cold answer from Wu Yu. At this moment, Wu Yu carried them, turned around suddenly, turned into a golden shadow in the eyes of mortals, and disappeared instantly. Queen Mother, Your Majesty. All the princes and ministers were simply stunned. Quickly, inform Immortal Haoshan that this immortal son has gone crazy. For a time, the palace was in chaos. However, they didn't know where Immortal Haoshan was, so they all panicked for a moment and hurriedly chased him in the direction Wu Yu left. At this time, Wu Yu had already arrived at the gate of the imperial city. When the people of Wudu and the imperial guards saw the legendary immortal arriving here with the Queen Mother and the Emperor in his arms, there was an uproar once again. At such a scene, even the imperial guards were so frightened that they fell to the ground and retreated one after another. On the other hand, the people of Wudu were scared and curious. More and more people gathered, watching from a distance, whispering and discussing what happened. Snap! Wu Yu threw the two of them to the ground and pulled out two thick hemp ropes from the nearby flag. Son Wudeo, what do you want to do? Immortal Haoshan will be here soon. If you try to torment us, when he arrives, you will have to be killed on the spot. At this time, UN11 vaguely felt Wu Yu's huge murderous intention in his heart, so he could only threaten him verbally. Sunday. Son Wudeo, don't be ungrateful. Yuan Hao's face was fierce and his heart was wet. Although he was warning, he had actually peed his pants, and there was already a piece of wetness under the dragon robe. Even UN11 could smell it. This pungent smell of urine is overwhelming. I'm just waiting for Haoshan to come back. Looking at these two people who had bared their teeth in front of him and changed his life, he recalled the contempt and sneer in their eyes after they succeeded. Now, they fell into Wu Yu's hands so easily. A Taoist is so much more than a mortal. Fortunately, I have embarked on the path of monasticism in my life. Therefore, we can crush these two enemies. While Wu Yu was talking, he tied two hemp ropes into a tight knot and wrapped them around the necks of UN11 and Yuan Hao. They could not untie them with their own strength. Son Wudeo, you are seeking death. UN11 had been fighting in the harem for many years. Although he was a mortal, he was very aura and powerful. This scolding would scare the shit out of ordinary mortals. However, Wu Yu turned a deaf ear and tied another section of the hemp rope to the beam of the imperial city, then lifted UN11 and Yuan Hao and threw them under the city wall. Until then, the two of them were frightened. Yuan Hao was shaking all over and screaming in agony. UN11 couldn't care less about threatening Wu Yu or his image and started screaming in agony. The two fell from a high altitude, with hemp ropes wrapped around their necks. When the hemp ropes stretched straight, they flew so fast that their necks were torn off. The princes and ministers had just chased out, as well as the imperial guards and the people of Wudu. When everyone saw this scene, they were frightened and almost suffocated. Queen Mother, Your Majesty. The faces of the princes and ministers turned pale, and many civil servants were frightened and fainted, falling to the ground. Those common people did not expect that Wu Yu actually wanted to kill them, and hang them alive on the gate of the imperial city for the world to watch. Just when everyone's hearts were in their throats, and even UN11 was scared to death, Wu Yu jumped down, caught the two of them before the rope was stretched, and then threw them on a wall of the imperial city. On the bulge. The two of them were standing close to each other in a narrow place. If they weren't careful, they would probably fall and hang themselves alive. Mother. UN11 and Yuan Hao hugged each other in embarrassment. They were shaking violently. They cried for father and mother for a while, howling like ghosts and wolves. It was so miserable. When you planned to harm me, let me swallow Xuanhuan powder, and then sent Wanking to kill me, did you think that such a day would come? Wu Yu sneered in his heart. What he is doing now is just the preparation stage. Now that he had the handle to hang these two people at any time, he said to the princes and ministers, the immortal Haoshan is in the Xiang mountains. You should send a message to him immediately and ask him to return. I will give him 1 day. Tomorrow this day, if he hasn't come back by then, I will hang these two poor guys alive in front of the people of the world. Yes. Immortal, yes. I didn't expect there was hope. Only then did everyone realize that Wu Yu's true purpose was to bring back immortal Haoshan. In fact, Haoshan would rush back in a hurry like this. If he killed them directly, he might not be so anxious. The princes and ministers dispersed in a hurry and sent people to spread the news to the Xiang mountains. You can't walk, kneel down. Wu Yu remembered the ministers who cooperated with concubine 11 to frame him that night, including Prince Yao and Marshal Wu. Well. Several ministers fell to the ground, their faces pale and trembling with fear. But they were still lucky. At least they were better than the two Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao who were standing on the bulge of the city wall and could fall down and hang themselves at any time. After finishing it, Wu Yu hugged the demon-subduing stick, closed his eyes and rested, waiting for Haoshan to return. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ public account 17K, ID. Love 17K, to read first and get the latest information at any time. /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 63. What a shocking event. In the inn, a thin martial artist suddenly rushed in. His face was full of excitement, and he held his knees and gasped. What? For a moment, everyone noticed this, and even the shopkeeper put down his calculations. The man finally caught his breath and said loudly and excitedly, "It's going crazy outside. I heard that this morning, Sun Shangxian of Wudu actually hung the Queen Mother and the Emperor on the city gate to make Hao, who was in the Xiang Mountains, the heavenly immortal, returns to Wudu to see him. If immortal Haoshan hasn't arrived by tomorrow morning, Sun Shangxian has announced that he will hang the Queen Mother and the Emperor alive in front of hundreds of thousands of people." After saying that, the man almost fell to the ground. What? For a moment, the whole inn was boiling. This is still a town close to Wudu, so we got the news in the afternoon. In fact, this shocking event is sweeping across the entire Dongyu kingdom at a terrifying speed, and even neighboring countries know about it. The immortal Haoshan should already know about it and is rushing back. Not to mention tomorrow morning, I guess he will have almost returned to Wudu by this time. Oh my God, are these two gods going to have a life and death battle? What is the conflict between them? I don't know. I heard that Sun Shangxian is the new supreme immortal protector of the country. Then supreme immortal Haoshan should leave, but he doesn't. Is it because of this? Even so, we can't take advantage of our mortal emperor and queen mother. The whole inn was talking crazy, and even many people staying in the inn ran out to join the discussion. If it hadn't been for the fact that no one succeeded Emperor Yuan Hao after his death, I would have hoped that both he and Yuan 11 would have lost their lives. Since Yuan Hao ascended the throne, the lives of our people have been far worse than before. That's right, Emperor Yuan Hao is perverse, violent, and incompetent. Stop talking about this. Many people have gone to Wudu to watch the excitement. Are you going? In the midst of the noisy discussion, Wu Yu fell asleep leaning on the edge of the bed at first. Then she woke up and heard the news about Wudu. Without saying a word, she opened the door. Sure enough, they were discussing Wu Du things. When she heard that Wu Yu had hung them up, she became even more nervous. Haoshan, we have to rush back soon. A life and death fight is about to begin. Wu Yu's heartbeat quickened. Under this breaking news, she had forgotten that his appearance was a beauty that could only be seen once in 100 years in this town, so when he came out, many people noticed her. Wu Yu returned to the room and closed the door. Even so, the shock in his heart continued and became more and more intense. Wu Du. From early morning to evening, half a day has passed. Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao were squeezed into a narrow place, and the smell of urine on their bodies was mixed together, making them extremely embarrassed. After experiencing this long period of torture, the two of them were already in despair. They hugged each other and were ashamed to see the hundreds of thousands of Wudu people who were watching them. They were usually aloof and would kill millions of people when they were angry, but now they were like birds in a cage, being teased by Wu Yu. Mother, if I can get out of trouble, I must let my father kill him. I will gouge out his eyes with my own hands. I will even find Wu Yu and rape him in front of him. Yuan Hao lowered his voice. He whispered, secretly, his eyes were blood red. Not only you, I also want Sun Wudao to pay the heaviest price in the world. Doesn't he love Wu Yu? I will let Wu Yu be tortured for the rest of his life, even to the point of death. The two had their heads close together and said vicious words to each other. Don't worry, your father will be here soon. This Sun Wudao didn't kill us early in the morning, which gave us a chance to survive. We survived the catastrophe, and the next step is the end of the Sun Wudao. Even if it is an immortal, they still hate it in their hearts. Incomparable hate. The deep murderous intention was hidden deep in the hearts of the two of them. All they show now is embarrassment and fear. In fact, their conversation could not be hidden from Wu Yu's ears. Wu Yu just sneered. In addition to them, there were also Prince Yao and others who had been kneeling for a long time. Their faces were pale at this time, and some of them had already kneeled with their knees purple. In order to welcome the return of Immortal Haoshan, he cleared a large area of the battle area, and the Wudu people who were watching had been driven away by Wu Yu. By this time, people were so thirsty that they were reluctant to go home to drink water. The whole Wudu was absolutely silent at this late afternoon. Wu Yu stood on the wall of the imperial city, looking in the direction of the Xiang Mountains. Finally, at the moment when the sun set, a loud hoarse roar came from the sky in the distance. Haoshan had returned. Buzz. The crane horse's snow-white wings flapped very quickly, almost to the extreme speed. This shows how anxious it is. What Wu Yu was worried about didn't happen. Zhang Junlin didn't come back with him, and even Yuan Chen didn't come back either. Sun Wudao. A furious roar exploded from the sky, rolling over Wudu like a dark cloud. The people of Wudu witnessed the wrath of Immortal Haoshan. Such movements made them unable to help but retreat. Boom. Immortal Haoshan was wearing a Bagua Taoist robe and holding a fire cloud whisk. At this moment, he fell directly from the sky and hit the ground, causing the ground to crack for a while. Buzz. At this time, the two people were directly confronting each other, and the war was already going crazy. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. In Wu Yu's eyes, the Immortal Haoshan had fallen into the flames in his eyes. The Immortal Haoshan glanced at Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao, and his eyes were about to spit out fire. He waited for 4 days in the Xiang Mountains, watching the fruits were about to mature, but he did not expect to receive such news. He felt that Wu Yu should have been sprinting to the Qi condensation realm at this time. He watched with his own eyes as Wu Yu took away Ghost Ji's bag of rice. According to his estimation, Ghost Ji must have a lot of Qi condensation pills. I didn't expect that. Sun Wudao, are you out of your mind? You dare to threaten me with a mortal emperor. He pretended to go to Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao to rescue them first. However, At this time, Wu Yu stood in front of the furious immortal Xuanhuan. The demon subduing stick blocked him sideways. Wu Yu smiled faintly and said, "Xuanhuan, I've endured it till today, and that's about it. To tell the truth, you know, my name is not Sun Wuodao." "What?" Immortal Xuanhuan looked at the monster monkey mask on Wu Yu's face in shock. In fact, Wu Yu actually said these words in his own voice. "I'm afraid he seems familiar. Senior Sun Wuodao, his real name is not Sun Wuodao." For a moment, the princes, ministers, imperial guards, people of Wudu, as well as UN11 and UN Hao all looked over with wide eyes. There was huge confusion and disbelief in their eyes. "Who the hell are you?" Xuanhuan suddenly felt a horrifying feeling in his heart. He didn't know where this feeling came from. Finally the moment has arrived. Wu Yu put on the demon monkey mask just to reveal it at this moment. From this moment on, he no longer has to endure it in Wudu. Therefore, when Wu Yu's palm came into contact with his demon monkey mask, almost everyone, even the immortal Xuanhuan, felt suffocated. Immortal Xuanhuan, Concubine 11, Yuan Hao, and all my friends from Wudu, please come and be fine. When Wu Yu said these words, with a slight movement of his palm, the mask was taken away by him. It was like a golden light flashing past. In that golden light, many people could not see his face clearly for a while. Until everyone got used to this light. That was a young man with eyes like a torch, handsome and powerful, domineering and handsome at heart. Judging from his appearance alone, he is a young emperor who is upright and looks down upon the world. Ah! When he saw this face, Immortal Xuanhuan simply screamed and took 3 steps back before barely standing still. His face changed from red when angry to livid in an instant. This was because he was frightened. After all, he had expected that Wu Yu's face would never look like this. When Wu Yu turned his head and glanced at UN11 and Yuan Hao, they were also stunned. They exclaimed, as if they were seeing a ghost. They were so frightened that they almost fell down. They went down, but even so, their legs were all weak. Wu Yu. UN11's lips trembled and his eyes widened. "Ghost, ghost." Yuan Hao buried his head in UN11's arms, his body was shaking violently, his legs were trembling, and he was afraid that he would fall down soon. Until this time, Wu Yu's true identity has been revealed. That's Wu Yu. Prince Na Yao and Marshal Wu lay on the ground, so frightened that they were transformed into human beings. Among them, Prince Na Yao quickly covered his chest. He was not young. At this time, he was convulsing all over, and he was directly frightened. Dead. The supreme immortal of Sun Wuodao is actually Wu Yu. When he thought about how powerful Sun Wuodao was, and then thought about that night when he forced Wu Yu into the palace, he was so frightened that he lost his life. That's Prince Yu. A suffocating storm passed by hundreds of thousands of Wudu people. Everyone was staring at the tall, stern man on the city wall. This moment was like a myth. The familiar Wu Yu has been the object of admiration by the people of Wudu for the past 15 years. On the eve of his ascension to the throne, he molested his mother and concubine, so he was deposed from the throne by Immortal Xuanhuan and sent to the border areas. Later, he was eaten alive by a mountain snake demon. Although Wu Yu was amazing and talented, which made people miss him, when people trusted the gods more, Wu Yu's great reputation was ruined. In addition, UN11 and Yuan Hao hated Wu Yu, and people were even more afraid to mention this former prince. At this moment, the dead man actually appeared and became an immortal. These shocking and incredible looks were exactly what Wu Yu wanted to see. But for today, this is just the beginning. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E/U003E/U003C/E/U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng-Qing Yang. Chapter 64. I'm afraid that at this time, even the immortal Haoshan was so shocked that he couldn't move for a while. In my heart, I'm afraid there are turbulent waves. This was Wu Yu's first step to defeat him. That is, to make him afraid. Everyone, that's right. I am not Sun Wudao. I am Wu Yu. I am the Wu Yu who had everything destroyed and was sent to the frontier more than a year ago. According to rumors, I have been eaten alive by a snake demon and I am already dead. But why didn't I die? Wu Yu's voice, calm, confident and calm, swept the whole city. Everyone had too many doubts in their hearts, so everyone stretched out their ears to listen to Wu Yu's words. Although more than a year has passed, at least most mortals are grateful to see themselves again. Today, in front of Immortal Haoshan, I will tell you about a big drama that happened in Zai Palace. As we all know, that night, I was about to ascend the throne as emperor. Then, what happened? Wu Yu's posture is relaxed. The more he behaves like this, the more frightened his opponents will be. Shut up, Immortal Haoshan was about to take action. Whoosh! Wu Yu immediately returned to Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao. He leaned against the city wall, with the demon subduing stick on Yuan Hao's back. Then he faced the Immortal Haoshan and said with a smile, Haoshan, if you don't let me say after that, to let the world know the truth of that day, I will first connect the hearts of these two people. You. In any case, although Haoshan despises Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao is still his flesh and blood. Therefore, he could not take action rashly. Wu Yu, no matter what changes happen to you, you will definitely die today. Looking at Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao who were screaming in fear, the Haoshan immortal gritted his teeth and threatened. Wu Yu turned a deaf ear to it. He was actually very excited. After more than a year of hard work, wasn't it just to tell the world today? He looked at the hundreds of thousands of people and said loudly, that night, I went to bed early in order to ascend the throne early in the morning. Unexpectedly, there was a heaven-defying being who took me to the Zai Hall, stripped me of my clothes, and when I woke up in a daze, many princes and ministers showed up. They actually said that I had molested my mother and concubine. I didn't even believe such a ridiculous thing. But then, the immortal Haoshan appeared, and he abolished my cultivation. Send me to the frontier. Wu Yu's words naturally caused an uproar. Does Prince Yu mean that immortal Haoshan and the Queen Mother teamed up to frame him, seize his throne, and depose him? But, why would immortal Haoshan do this? For a time, everyone was talking about it. I know you may not believe it, but I will tell you a few facts and you will know. Everyone, please listen. For a moment, everyone fell silent again and looked at Wu Yu eagerly. First, whether it is me or the immortal Haoshan, in terms of ability, they are indeed very powerful, but in the final analysis, we are not real immortals. We are also human beings, and we also have emotions and desires. On the surface, we are immortals, but secretly we may be insidious and cunning. This is the premise. It is precisely because everyone regards immortal Haoshan as a god who saves all sentient beings that they trust him to the extreme, and then even Wu Yu doesn't believe it. A few months ago, people would not believe what Wu Yu said. However, in the past few months, they have seen many conflicts between gods and immortals, and have begun to understand that the so-called gods are actually similar to mortals. Second, this news is breaking news. Do you know why immortal Haoshan is so anxious today? Because, he and Queen Mother 11 are concubines. Yuan Hao and Yuan Chen are not the sons of my father, but this the son of immortal Haoshan. If you look at his appearance, does this Yuan Hao look more like my father, or does he look like Haoshan? After saying that, Wu Yu burst out laughing. What? I am afraid that even Marshal Wu and his ilk will not know this news. It is a blockbuster for the people of Wudu, or the entire Dongyu Wu kingdom. The current emperor is actually the son of the former emperor's concubine and the immortal protector of the country. Oh my god. The people were going crazy. However, not to mention anything else, just in terms of appearance, it is obvious that Wu Yu and Wu Yu are both close to the late emperor, with stronger lines and taller figures. Yuan Hao and Yuan Chen are both like Haoshan. Their lines tend to be feminine, and they look like parents at first glance. It's just that no one dared to think like this before. Wu Yu, immortal Haoshan, was furious when he heard this. It would be very detrimental to him if this news spread. Even Zhonyu and Daozong would find trouble for him. Tisk, Wu Yu pushed it lightly, and the demon-subduing stick burned a hole in the clothes on Yuan Hao's back. The tip of the demon-subduing stick directly printed a mark on Yuan Hao's back, and Yuan Hao was in pain. He screamed earth-shatteringly, and at the same time had to desperately hold his body steady. Look, everyone, Haoshan is nervous. Wu Yu's move made Haoshan immortal unable to take action, but Wu Yu grabbed the handle. At this time, thousands of people saw Haoshan's nervousness, and there was no way to refute this matter. As long as you believe this, you can think of why immortal Haoshan and concubine 11 planned to destroy Wu Yu and make Yuan Hao the emperor. Let me tell you, Prince Yu has been focusing on martial arts since he was a child. It's not like he has never seen beautiful women. How could he suddenly make such a big mistake? It turns out that there is such a shocking secret. It turned out to be immortal Haoshan and concubine 11 who planned to frame him. At that time, Prince Yu was not as powerful as he is now. It's so pitiful, how did he narrowly escape death and be able to return here today? This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. For a time, the entire Wu capital, and even the entire Suqiao, probably understood the truth of this matter. But it's not over yet. Wu Yu laughed and said, "Everyone, when this great immortal deposed me, it was not enough to send me to the frontier. He also sent snake demons to intercept and kill me on the way. You must not believe it. This great immortal killed demons and slew demons. How could he raise a snake demon? However, Haoshan did. When the snake demon transformed into a human form, his name was Wanking. Many people in the palace knew him. Wanking had eaten thousands of them in Wudu over the years. People, Haoshan has never been able to control it. Do you remember that a few days ago, I killed a snake demon in Wudu? Yes, that was Wanking. This news is equally exciting. People already trusted Wu Yu more at this time, and now they saw the true face of immortal Haoshan clearly from this incident. They never thought that this immortal protector of the country could be such a person. Many of these hundreds of thousands of people were family members of those who were eaten by the snake demon. At this time, they finally understood the reason for the disappearance of their family members and couldn't help crying. Haoshan, it's a pity that Wanking couldn't eat me. Your snake demon disturbed the leader of Tongtian sword sect, Supreme Feng Xia. Now, I, Wu Yu, have gone through all the difficulties and returned to Wudu to take revenge. I want you all. Fate. I am now Feng Shui's direct disciple. You didn't expect this. I was crippled by you with Duan Hunsun, but I didn't want to have the heaven-defying qualifications. In more than a year, I went from being a cripple to a cripple. At this level today, do you know that for so long, I have wanted to drink your blood and eat your flesh every day. The last sentence is simply Wu Yu's roar. Until this time, no one disbelieved what Wu Yu said. Many details cannot be fake at all. Moreover, Haoshan, Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao all had dull faces at this time and did not refute at all. The facts were right in front of them, and all refutations were just sophistry. I didn't expect that Prince Yu would experience such a disaster, and I didn't expect that he would be reborn as a god. He has been back as Sun Wudao for a long time, and it is only today that he has revealed his identity. How difficult is this process? People are emotional. Thinking about Wu Yu's experience from death to life, people couldn't help but burst into tears. What needs to be said has been said. Wu Yu was unhappy after having been suppressed in his heart for so long. No matter what the outcome was today, at least he had to let the world know the true face of immortal Xuanhuan. He succeeded. Originally, people were partial to immortal Xuanhuan, but from now on, immortal Xuanhuan's reputation has dropped to the bottom. If it weren't for his terrifying strength, he would be reduced to a street rat that everyone yells at. Hundreds of thousands of people in Wudu are all eager for the legendary return of Prince Yu to defeat Xuanhuan and kill him for revenge. As for UN11 and Yuan Hao, they were not popular among the people to begin with, and now they are even more annoying. Wu Yu, are you finished? Immortal Xuanhuan watched helplessly as the people's hearts were gone, but was powerless to do anything. Faced with Wu Yu, who came back for revenge in an unbelievable way, the only thing he could do was to fight back. That's it. Wu Yu waved his hand. Today is the most exciting day in the history of Wudu. Immortal Xuanhuan looked indifferent and said, I didn't expect that when I abolished you, I brought you such a huge fortune and became Feng Xia's personal disciple. It's really a miracle. To be honest, you have to thank me. Wu Yu smiled and said, of course I am grateful to you. If you hadn't harmed me, I wouldn't be where I am today. But, I still want you to die here and disappear into ashes. Then it depends on whether you have this ability. The sparks between the two were burning hotly at this moment. Wu Yu, you will die miserably, and your sister Wu Yu will kill thousands of people. Yuan Hao was beside Wu Yu, and the pain on his back made him lose his mind. Yeah, then let's start with you. The demon-conquering stick in Wu Yu's hand hit Yuan Hao. Yuan Hao screamed and fell down, but Concubine 11 was fixed by Wu Yu. Click. The hemp rope tied around Yuan Hao's neck straightened instantly. The Emperor Yuan Hao of the first generation was hung on the city gate. In just 3 breaths, his screams became weaker and weaker, and then he died on the spot in despair and pain. His corpse, with eyes wide open, was dangling on the wall of the imperial city. Xuanhuan, if you have the guts, come and fight. When Wu Yu jumped up, Xuanhuan was already chasing after him like crazy. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information. /U003C /E /U003E /U003C /E /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 65. Xuanhuan is a disciple of the Zhonyuan Dao section. The qi condensation technique he uses should be the Zhonyuan Daojing that is relatively common in his section. The magic power forged by the Zhonyuan Daojing is majestic and majestic. I don't have the qi condensation technique for the time being. In terms of magic power, I'm far behind this 3rd level qi condensation realm. In my physical body, I have more than 5 times the divine power. In today's life and death battle, Wu Yu's indestructible body is still Wu Yu's huge asset. Under the gaze of everyone, Xuanhuan and Wu Yu almost started fighting head-on at this time. Xuanhuan's own son died, and his eyes were extremely red at this time. Help me quickly. Seeing her son hanging with her own eyes, UN11 was almost scared to death. Unfortunately, no one seemed to dare to rescue her at this time. Marshal Wu and others were scared away long ago. As for Xuanhuan, he was busy fighting Wu Yu to the death and had no time to pay attention to her. The reason why Wu Yu only killed one Yuan Hao and let UN11 live was to let her see with her own eyes how the mythical immortal Xuanhuan died. Wow! The two fought in an open space in front of the imperial city, causing a huge uproar. People were frightened and continued to retreat. Wu Yu! Wu Yu! Many people were brave enough to directly shout for Wu Yu. The power of thousands of people is also a kind of power. How outrageous! When Wu Yu dies in battle, all the shouting civilians will be quartered. UN-11 cursed ferociously, but her voice was too soft and no one heard her. The immortal Haoshan was holding a fire cloud whisk in his hand, his body filled with rage and murderous intent. Wu Yu poured mana into the demon-subduing stick, which increased its power. Although there was only one source of magic, he estimated that his attack power had increased by at least one-half of its original value. There are 15,000 war horses with divine power. Every move made the earth shake. We, the Xuanhuan Dao sect, are the orthodox cultivators. You are unlucky because you joined the Tongtian sword sect and learned some unsavory methods. Na Haoshan was very proud. Snort. The two fought with magic weapons. For a while, the silver snake-like fly whisks flew and entangled in the sky, sometimes like steel whips, sometimes turning into rain of flowers and piercing the sky, but they were all blocked by Wu Yu. Haoshan. Wu Yu's gaze, burning like the scorching sun, fell on Immortal Haoshan. Even though Immortal Haoshan had lost a son, he was still calm. Now his only goal was to kill Wu Yu, and he no longer wanted to worry about it. Beacon fire. In the blink of an eye, he used the green root fire technique. He was high in the sky and smiled coldly. The green root fire on his fingers burned onto the fire cloud fly whisk. For a moment, the clouds filled the air and the fire cloud fly whisk turned into a big blue snake. Wandering in the burning clouds. Countless people felt this terrifying heat even though they were far away. The methods of gods are really terrible. Prince Yu, we must defeat him. People clenched their fists and chanted almost the same words. They all wanted Wu Yu to win. I'm afraid they can all feel the blood-like hatred in Wu Yu's heart. Even if you succeed in condensing your qi, you are still a yellow-haired child in my eyes. Wu Yu, I have been practicing for 153 years, and you have been practicing for 1 year. You really don't understand the difference between us. You're just stupid today. You're too anxious. With your qualifications, I'm afraid you won't be your match in a few years. Na Haoshan was still laughing wildly. He had 10,000 confidence in his experience in cultivating Taoism. Of course, what he said is what people are worried about, and it is also what Wu Yu, who is far outside Wudu, is worried about. Really? Wu Yu's figure kept flickering under the flaming cloud, and people couldn't see clearly these golden lights. You don't even know how to do Taoism, and you still dare to come and fight me. It's ridiculous. Na Haoshan cast his immortal magic, and immediately, the giant blue snake formed by green fire in the sky bit towards Wu Yu. Wherever it went, whether it was a palace or a private house, everything was burned to ashes. Haha, Concubine 11 couldn't help laughing when she saw Immortal Haoshan's amazing method at the palace gate. The people in Wudu were extremely nervous. Call. The giant green snake suddenly appeared in front of Wu Yu's eyes. Wu Yu was almost swallowed by the giant flame snake. Everyone was nervous and noisy for a while, but Wu Yu didn't look scared. He held the demon-subduing stick with both hands. The demon-subduing sticks are integrated into one, the magic power explodes, and the physical strength becomes even more violent. A magic stick. That stick violently hit the head of the giant blue snake from top to bottom. Boom. The giant green snake screamed and collapsed in front of Wu Yu's eyes. It exploded and turned into a green rain of fire that filled the sky. It fell with a crash. In this rain of fire, Wu Yu, who was like a golden scorching sun, one person and one stick, shocked the world. What a powerful force! Immortal Haoshan's heart trembled, and he almost took a breath of air. However, he was still not surprised. After all, Wu Yu still had no Taoist skills. He withdrew the fire whisk, sneered again, and said, "It was a moment, but if you want to destroy me just because of this, it's too early. Wu Yu, let me show you what real Taoism is." Haoshan's voice made Wudu tremble. That immortal Haoshan is so powerful. Wu Yu won't be able to hold on anymore. It would be great if he could continue to be patient. Compared with the cunning old man who is so kind to the heavenly immortal, Prince Yu is still too young. Prince Yu, please don't die. Although everyone was praying, the intensity of the battle still exceeded their imagination. Compared with Wu Yu, the Taoist skills of immortal Haoshan were so gorgeous that ordinary people couldn't understand it. They just felt that Wu Yu was completely suppressed by his opponent. He's going to die? Even UN-11, who was huddled on the city wall with only half his life left, felt happy that he had survived a catastrophe. Even though he had been incontinent several times, a ferocious smile appeared on his face and he scolded Wu Yu. Master, tear him apart and bury him with Yuan Hao. Even Wu Yu can't escape. Boom boom boom. Along with UN-11's curses, palaces and houses collapsed one after another. Oops. At this moment, Wu Yu jumped into the sky. Immortal ape transformation. It was already night at this time, but at this moment, he was just like the sun above Wudu, shining with extremely fierce light. Countless people saw with their own eyes that Wu Yu's divine body was growing taller and more burly, reaching a height of 7 feet. He was nearly 3 heads taller than the immortal Haoshan. In front of them, the immortal Haoshan looked like a giant. Child. That golden hair shines with dazzling luster. The word swastika on the back is even more shocking. This golden ape body, coupled with the demon-subduing stick, has even more explosive abilities. Haoshan. Wu Yu's eyes were like golden suns at this moment. In his eyes, immortal Haoshan was already burning. What can I do if I become a beast? The immortal of Haoshan sneered. His methods were endless. So far in the battle, he had indeed caused a lot of trouble for Wu Yu, so his self-confidence was even more inflated. Forget it, since you are looking for death again, I will let you die a heroic death. The laughter of immortal Haoshan simply caused trouble to countless people in Wudu. They looked at the battlefield in despair, with an ominous premonition in their hearts. Could it be that Prince Yu was going to lose? Is there such a big difference between practicing Taoism for 100 years and practicing Taoism for 1 year? Many people could not stop crying. UN-11 laughed with his high-pitched voice, his hair flying wildly, and he looked like a ghost in this night. Call. The immortal Haoshan, calmly concentrating, put away the firefly whisk, raised his hands, and pinched the Taoist secrets. When he was still at this moment, his eyes were cold and stern. There was a storm around him, a tornado, which had already surrounded immortal Haoshan, and was spinning at high speed. The key is that there was a fire in the storm. This is definitely a Taoist technique that is much more profound than the big root fire. As soon as it appeared, it was so extraordinary that the land and gravel around the Haoshan immortal were all shattered in an instant. Boom boom boom. The flame storm pierced the ground, causing the ground in Wudu to tremble for a while, and it was difficult for UN-11 to stand still. Wu Yu, taste my fire tornado technique. When it comes to actual fighting, the immortal fruit of Haoshan is really overbearing. Wu Yu's worries are not unreasonable. He has practiced Taoism for hundreds of years and has indeed developed endless methods. Especially now, the fire tornado technique is as terrifying as extinction. Wu Yu transformed into an immortal ape and slowly fell down. Buzz. The firestorm formed by the fire tornado technique is even more intense. If it continues to expand at this rate, it will probably involve many people in Wudu, and there will definitely be countless casualties. Suffer death, Wu Yu. In the storm, the long white hair of immortal Haoshan was flying, and a relaxed smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, which was full of contempt. This smile is somewhat similar to when he abolished himself that night. Perhaps from the beginning to the end, immortal Haoshan was still standing on a high place, despising his existence. What will happen if you come back? What will happen if you become Feng Xiao's direct disciple? I, Haoshan, are destined to be an insurmountable gap in your life. And you are destined to die under this firestorm today. The immortal Xuanhuan said loudly, as if he was declaring the judgment of heaven. This sentence made the people even more afraid. Really? The golden ape faced the firestorm and charged towards him. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 66. Standing on the highest palace in the palace, you can see that outside the imperial city, there is a large area shrouded in Xuanhuan's angry storm. Hundreds of private houses were directly torn apart and turned into crushed wood. The rocks, beside Xuanhuan, rolled violently and flew. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. People only know that the strongest masters of martial arts and spiritual power can be as powerful as thousands of troops. Now that they have seen the methods of the immortal protector of the country, they truly know that martial arts and spiritual power are only the power of mortals, nothing more. The magic of immortality is simply more terrifying than natural earthquakes, storms, and volcanic eruptions. To mortals, this immortal protector of the country is indeed the one who rules the world. Wu Yu, come in. The voice of Xuanhuan swept thousands of feet. The power of his Taoism really exploded at this moment, and Wu Yu simply had no way to escape. The tornado of anger had already swept before his eyes. In fact, he has a way to resolve this technique, which is to retreat and lean against concubine 11. Normally, Xuanhuan might stop in order to avoid hurting UN 11. However, Wu Yu disdained to do this. Furthermore, in the face of UN 11's death, will Xuanhuan stop? This is not necessarily the case. Based on Wu Yu's understanding of him, he loves himself even more. Compared with killing Wu Yu and saving UN 11, if he could only choose one, he would probably choose to kill Wu Yu directly and let UN 11 be buried with him. After all, when Wu Yu is not Sun Wuodao, but Prince Yu, this status has a different meaning to Xuanhuan. Facing the angry tornado, there is no turning back. After the immortal ape transformation, Wu Yu's whole body was controlled by a manic emotion. The stronger the opponent, the more irritable and violent he felt. Those eyes like the scorching sun actually had a blood-filled feeling. Hoo-ho! He rushed forward faster, roaring like a wild beast. Among the magic weapons, the Luo formation was fully operational under the drive of magic power, and a raging flame was born on the demon-subduing stick, burning 10 feet high. The hatred and anger of more than a year burst out, traveling through his internal organs, bones and flesh like a raging fire, causing every part of his body to burn. The magic source of Tanzong Ake appointment is working crazily, giving birth to a huge amount of magic power. The whole world in front of me has turned into blood. Xuanhuan. Wu Yu now has 4 sharp teeth in his mouth, and they are now like weapons, shining with a cold light. That grin looked particularly ferocious. Buzz. Once it breaks out, the blood will surge to the sky. Kill. A loud shout shocked the whole city. At that moment, the demon-subduing stick shone brightly. Wu Yu resolutely faced the angry tornado and charged head-on, raising the demon-subduing stick high. A magic stick. It's still the magic stick, but after the immortal ape transformation, everything seems to be more consistent and different. In the eyes of countless Wuda people, Wu Yu's resolute charging attitude still deeply shocked them. But for most people, such a move is like sending death. Break. His determination is to break this fire tornado technique. How heroic! How courageous! Seeing this scene, even N.A. Haoshan couldn't help but sneer. For so many years, his opponents could only avoid this kind of Taoism. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. When Wu Yu rushed into the angry tornado, the endless flames burned fiercely on his body. The rocks, broken wood, and other debris, under the high-speed operation, became big killers, impacting on him one by one. On his body, especially the sharp-shaped gravel, the lethality is even greater. This Taoist technique can kill thousands of troops and horses into powder on the battlefield. The fierce storm caused flames, gravel, and sharp wood to hit and bombard Wu Yu's body at this moment. In just one moment, there were literally tens of thousands of impacts, making a dense impact sound. With such a Taoist technique, if other people at the first level of the Qi condensation realm rush in like this, their bodies will probably be torn into pieces within 3 breaths of time. It is precisely because of this that Haoshan is so confident. Only the people of Wudu are worried and afraid of Wu Yu. They could all imagine that Wu Yu was torn into pieces. Dang dang dang. I originally thought that it would be torn apart in an instant, but after 3 breaths of time passed, the terrifying impact sound continued, and people could still see that there was a complete human form where Wu Yu was. That's right. Indestructible body. No matter how fast the rocks and sharp wood are, now that they have completed the first level of the indestructible body of Vajra, and the body is like steel, there is only one result when the rocks, sharp wood, and other debris collide with it, and that is to shatter. Become a mess. As for the flames that fill the sky, most of the indestructible body itself comes from the forging of flames. It can be said that among the many Taoist arts, the one Wu Yu is least afraid of is flames. Especially, now the body of the golden ape is burning with golden flames. The effect of the storm was just to lengthen Wu Yu's golden flame. Haoshan claimed to have hundreds of years of experience in cultivating Taoism, but he didn't know about this simple attribute issue. He was in the center of the storm, eyes wide open, and he almost watched Wu Yu rush in. How is it possible? His body can be so strong. I still can't tear him apart. Like crazy, he struggled to use the magic power of the 3 sources of energy to instill it in this technique, making the storm even more intense. Wu Yu, you will be cut into pieces by me, a roar came from Haoshan in the storm. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Wu Yu faced the obstacles in the sky and moved forward. The fiery sun in his eyes had already been dyed blood red at this moment. The demon-subduing stick in his hand is filled with rage. Bah, break, break. He has an astonishing momentum and a huge amount of pride in his chest. Every step he takes, he breaks through many storms. To be honest, it is not easy to move forward in this destructive Taoism, but with this blood feud, as long as he does not die, there is nothing he can do at this moment. Blocking him. Call. The demon-subduing stick swept away the storm, causing it to fall into chaos. Oops. Wu Yu's huge golden immortal ape body roared violently. This was the most terrifying moment since he had the immortal ape transformation. The golden anger, which stretched 300 feet long, was torn by the storm and gathered in the storm, almost replacing Haoshan's flames. Haoshan, the moment I was reborn, I made an oath not to kill you in this life, and I vowed not to be a human being. Finally, let me wait for this moment, haha. His crazy smile swept away with the storm. What? Faintly, Haoshan in the center of the firestorm saw a golden figure penetrating through. To this extent, he hasn't been torn apart yet. Only now did immortal Haoshan feel deep fear. But, it's too late. Boom. At the moment when the storm shook, Wu Yu rushed out of it. Like a blood-red refining sun, it temporarily blocked the sight of immortal Haoshan. Wu Yu. Immortal Haoshan shouted in horror. All his mana was poured into the storm. Who knew that Wu Yu could actually rush into the storm with his flesh and blood? Die. Riot rushed out, and with the divine stick, Riot smashed down like a giant pillar holding up the sky. The immortal Haoshan was the heaven in his heart. Today, he wants to turn this world upside down. Boom. When the stick hit, immortal Haoshan resisted it with a fire cloud whisk, but the divine power of the 10,000 June was so terrifying. The first stick smashed away the magical weapon of the whisk, and landed heavily on immortal Haoshan's shoulder. Click. There was a loud cracking of bones. The once aloof immortal Haoshan screamed in pain and fell to his knees heavily on the ground. Wu Yu almost smashed half of his body into the ground. At this time, without the support of magic power from Haoshan, the tornado technique collapsed instantly, the flames disappeared, and rocks and broken wood fell to the ground one after another, like a miracle. Through all the chaos, when they saw the Haoshan immortal covered in blood and kneeling in front of Wu Yu, everyone looked stiff and almost suffocated. Ah! UN-11 let out a shocking scream, her body pressed against the city wall, her eyes widened, as if thunder and lightning were wandering around her body. Her screams were extremely sharp and endless. It was obvious that her whole world was collapsing now. Except for this scream, except for the battlefield, everything else was silent. Everyone stared with wide eyes, even with tears in their eyes, watching Wu Yu judge this opponent. Wu Yu, I have a big secret to tell. After suffering a heavy blow, immortal Haoshan obviously knew that his fate was over, and he directly destroyed everything about him with one stroke of his divine stick. Therefore, he saw Wu Yu's second stick coming violently, and he said quickly. However, Wu Yu is not that stupid. Now the opponent is trying to find an opportunity to counter-attack while he is not paying attention. His speed has not stopped at all. Besides, now that the immortal ape has transformed into a divine body, even he himself can't control himself and goes crazy. Bang! The stick hit the head, hitting Haoshan's Beihui point. Click! Haoshan's skull was shattered. Because he was talking, the teeth actually bit off his tongue, and Wu Yu planned every sentence. Well. The immortal Haoshan's head was bleeding, and he stared at Wu Yu with wide eyes. It was a look of despair, but unfortunately he couldn't say a word. Do you regret it? Wu Yu truly destroyed him this time. Haoshan's mouth was full of blood, and he had blood and tears in his eyes. He nodded quickly, probably he had never thought that he would be in such a state of embarrassment. There's no point regretting it. Wu Yu's face was indifferent, and he swept the demon-subduing stick in his hand with a click. Everyone clearly saw the head of immortal Haoshan flying out, drawing a parabola, and finally smashed into pieces next to Concubine 11. Ah, Concubine 11 let out her last scream when she was in her most desperate state. She was so frightened that her feet slipped and she fell down from the city wall. The hemp rope instantly tightened and strangled her rather delicate neck. Ah, ah. In mid-air, Concubine 11 pulled the hemp rope around her neck, but to no avail. She kept struggling and swinging in the air, her eyes rolled white, and the last seen in her field of vision was the corpse of immortal Haoshan, which fell to the ground with a snap. At Wu Yu's feet. Master, honor. The last sound came out, and the world went completely dark. Next to her was Yuan Hao, who was hanging out with her. It's over. Well. Wu Yu looked at the chaos around him. My heart is empty. \U003CE \U003E \U003CE \U003F. Follow the official QQ public account 17K, ID, Love 17K, to read first and get the latest information at any time \U003C/E \U003E \U003C/E \U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 67. Revenge was successful. It can be said that these nearly 2 years and countless days and nights of hard work are all for the success of this moment. Remember the domain name of this website, Taiwan Novel Network, rightward arrow. Suddenly my long-cherished wish came true. Looking at the motionless body of immortal Haoshan and Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao hanging on the city gate, I really felt an emptiness in my heart. As for the carnival, that is unlikely. After all, revenge itself is not a happy thing. All I can say is that I breathed a sigh of relief. Father, this is revenge for myself, and it can also be regarded as revenge for you. Looking in the direction of the palace, these are the lands built by the ancestors, and now they are back in the hands of the Wu family. It's just a small thing in this long monastic life. There is no need to be sentimental, let alone pretentious. The end of today is a new beginning. Wu Yu looked at Haoshan Immortals Fire Cloud Whisk and Mi's bag. He hesitated for a moment, but ultimately did not pick them up. Haoshan was born in the Xuanhuan Dao sect, and he can be considered a decent person. I killed him only for revenge, not for the treasure. The Sword Dao sect rules said that cultivating the Dao requires a Taoist heart. I can't do anything that is greedy for small fortunes or goes against my original intention. Now he doesn't know when Zhang Junlin will return, so he has to leave quickly. It's when you're tired that you can't meet him the most. Prince Yu. Wu Yu beheaded Haoshan in front of the entire Wu kingdom. At this time, the people of Wudu fell to their knees on the ground. They used to admire Wu Yu, but now they are more pious to the immortal. Everyone, please get up. Wu Yu looked at them with soft eyes. At this time, he had completely calmed down. After the revenge, the so-called Taoist heart seems to have become clearer than ever before. Please Prince Yu, please be my Emperor of Suchao again and lead me to conquer the world. As soon as Haoshan and the others died, the princes and ministers knew that there was no point in escaping. At this time, Marshal Wu led the way and knelt on the ground. This was the desire of the people, so for a while, it seemed that everyone in the world wanted Wu Yu to ascend the throne again. Everyone. I have entered the immortal way and will no longer care about mortal affairs. Now Yuan Hao has been killed by me, but please rest assured that I will make arrangements for the new emperor in a while. Please take this time to everyone should behave themselves, otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. This was told to some princes and ministers. Now, I need to leave for a while. Please wait for me to return to Wudu. He must leave first. The people looked at each other. Sure enough, Prince Yu no longer wants to be immortal emperor. Yes, he is already an immortal. Thinking of this, people were just a little bit disappointed. They believed that as long as Prince Yu was still there, Dongyu Wu Kingdom would definitely have a better future. That's about it. Wu Yu picked up the blood-stained demon-subduing stick, turned it into a golden light, and disappeared into the dark night. The entire Wudu was still silent. Everyone looked at the three corpses in a daze. The people, and even the senior officials, actually didn't know the existence of Zhang Junlin. They only knew about Prince Yuan Chen, but Prince Yuan Chen was far from Wu Yu's opponent, so they actually didn't know the reason why Wu Yu left in a hurry. Sister, tonight must be the biggest surprise for you. Wu Yu stepped out of Wudu. For him, the front was simply plain. In the past, when he was burdened with a blood feud, he could only see hatred. Now that the hatred is resolved, he can see an endless and magnificent world. 3,000 immortal kingdoms, Dongsheng divine continent, and the sea in all directions. How huge is this vast world? Running on the ground, Wu Yu's heart gradually expanded. I was blinded by hatred before. Now, that stumbling block is gone, and the path to immortality is extremely open. Endless mountains, vast rivers, vast seas, how many creatures, how many sects, how many ascetics. There is no end in sight for this world. The story of Dongsheng Shenzhou only describes a few surrounding places and dozens of countries. This magnificent world gradually fascinated Wu Yu. If I could become a golden elixir immortal like Master, wielding swords all over the world, how free and happy I would be. Invisibly, he understood the heroic spirit of slaying demons and wielding a sword across the world. The greatest joy in life is probably to explore this endless world. Whenever he thought of the magical things recorded in Dongsheng Shenzhou, Wu Yu had the urge to leave here immediately and go explore. It's just that he still understands that with his current first-level magic power in the Qi condensation realm, he is only a cultivator of the lowest level. With such strength, he can't go very far. In the mountains, forbidden areas, and rivers, demons are running rampant, disturbing people's souls, and specifically watching the treasures of the monks. I have solved the matter in Wudu, and will return to the Bibo Mountains in a while to concentrate on cultivating Taoism. To practice Taoism, you cannot avoid being down to earth. He knew that the news that Immortal Haoshan was beheaded today was spreading throughout Suqiao at a terrifying speed. Zhang Junlin and Yuan Chen will definitely know. For the time being, Wu Yu didn't want to provoke Zhang Junlin. He would cause a lot of trouble. It's a pity that the birth fruit is an immortal root. It is probably a treasure that even Master would want to get. It was born in Dongyu Kingdom. It should have been mine, but Zhang Junlin took it away. According to the rules of the two factions, this was supposed to be Wu Yu's, so I felt a little unwilling to do so. But, there's nothing we can do about it. While Wu Yu was thinking about this, the town finally arrived. It was late at night now. From early morning to late at night, Wu Yu only stayed for about half a day, so there shouldn't be any problems. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Zhang Junlin and the others should never find them here. I don't know how happy my sister would be if she knew that I killed my enemy. At least, she won't have to worry about me anymore. Wu Yu became excited. To be honest, he had made many meritorious deeds and achieved many achievements since childhood, and he shared them with Princess Wu Yu immediately. At night, the whole town was quiet. Wu Yu landed next to the inn. Instead of entering through the front door, he found the window of Wu Yu's Tianzi room No. 2, jumped on it, and opened the window. Maybe you didn't light the lamp because you were afraid of exposing yourself. The room was dark. But Wu Yu has become a Taoist. When he lay on the window, he could clearly see that there was no one in the room. How could it be? Isn't it this room? He entered the room and took a closer look. It was definitely this room. He could still remember all the furnishings in the room, but Wu Yu was missing. This made Wu Yu suddenly anxious. He remembered that he won the first place in the entrance examination and went back to report the good news to Sun Wuidao, only to find that Sun Wuidao had been killed. This ominous premonition was so terrifying that he rushed out and broke the door. At this time, the inn was closed, but the shopkeeper's room was near the counter. Wu Yu jumped down and kicked the door open. Lifted up the middle-aged shopkeeper who had just woken up in fright, and asked angrily, "Where are the guests in room 2, Tianzi?" When Wu Yu came in the morning, he was wearing a demon monkey mask, so the shopkeeper was deeply impressed by him. Although Wu Yu had put away the demon monkey mask now, his body shape was unmistakable, and the shopkeeper recognized him instantly. Are you talking about Princess Wu Yu?" When she came in the morning, she hid her appearance, and the little man didn't recognize her. In the afternoon, she suddenly opened the door and let people see her true face. Wrong, one of the martial arts people recognized her. Wu Yu almost crushed the entire inn. Because there are only 2 days left for the fruit to mature, time is urgent, and once he goes to Wudu, his life or death is unknown, so he can only put Wu Yu here first. Generally speaking, Wu Yu rarely shows up to know her. There are not many people, so even if someone sees her appearance, they will basically not be recognized. They will only think that she is a beauty and just take a few more glances. They were recognized the moment they appeared. It can only be said that they were both very unlucky. Then what? The shopkeeper trembled in fear when he saw Wu Yu was so scary, and said, "At first, Princess Wu Yu didn't want to see anyone, so everyone didn't dare to go up. Later, the news spread, and a city guard named Yuan Feng, the military commander, came with dozens of soldiers and asked to see Princess Wu Yu. Princess Wu Yu was unwilling to see him, but Yuan Feng seemed to say that it was because Sun Wuodao Master had kidnapped the emperor and the queen mother, and Princess Wu Yu was here. So he wants to send Princess Wu Yu to Wudu and ask the immortal Sun Wuodao to release the queen mother and the emperor." The shopkeeper trembled, and finally explained the cause and effect clearly. Wu Yu naturally didn't know Yuan Feng, but judging by his name, he must be from the queen mother Yuan 11's clan. At that time in the afternoon, the news that he had kidnapped Yuan 11 had already spread here. Princess Wu Yu, who was close to him, appeared here. It happened that there was a member of the Yuan 11 clan in this town who was the commander of the city guard. This person he was brave enough to tie up Wu Yu and send him to Wudu. Wu Yu felt a little more relaxed. At least Wu Yu was only sent to Wudu instead of being killed. There was still a chance. There was only one official road from here to Wudu, so Wu Yu put down the shopkeeper and went straight out, chasing after him with all his might. They left in the afternoon. If they had been hurrying, they would be very close to Wudu now. The one named Yuan Feng wanted to give Wu Yu to Haoshan so that hostages could be exchanged. With his status, he should not do anything to Princess Wu Yu. If he knew that Haoshan had been killed, he would probably be even more worried. Don't dare anymore. A mere mortal would not dare to go against an immortal. Now, Wu Yu only hopes for this. Damn, I was so anxious for revenge. I should have hidden her better, but who knew she would be recognized by someone, who knew there would be a Yuan Feng here. These many coincidences have caused Wu Yu to be in big trouble now. According to 6 days, Zhang Junlin and the others will have to wait at least tomorrow night before they can return to Wudu. As long as Wu Yu is still in Wudu and doesn't come into contact with them, they should be fine. Wu Yu ran as fast as he could, chasing him desperately across the vast land. This world is bigger than everyone imagines, and the Monkey King is just the beginning. In addition, there are red envelope passwords in the book review area, first come first served, issued by Feng Qingyang. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information. /U003C /E /U003E /U003C /E /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 68. Wudu, Dark Night. Outside the imperial city, the bodies of Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao had been put down, placed together with the corpses of immortal Haoshan, and covered with straw mats. Tonight, the full moon hangs high. Under the moonlight, the blood stains on the ground gave off a strange light. Not far away, there were still many people from Wudu who had not dispersed, looking nervously in the direction of the city gate. At this moment, a white hand suddenly reached out and lifted up the straw mat, revealing immortal Haoshan inside. His head had been put back, but it was hard to tell. Tisk, tisk, this Wu Yu really hates that he is no longer human. Under the moonlight, you can see that the speaker is wearing a silver fox fur coat, and exudes a fascinating evil temperament. His hard face, crystal clear skin, under the moonlight, under the illumination, it becomes even more outstanding, as if it were an immortal descending to earth. It was Zhang Junlin. Behind him, followed Yuan Chen, who was slightly thinner. His eyes were bloodshot and he clenched his fists. His originally handsome face now looked ferocious. "Senior brother Zhang, you must help me." Yuan Chen didn't cry loudly, but his voice was hoarse. Zhang Junlin turned around and smiled, saying, "This is no problem. Don't worry, I have benefited from this Haoshan, and with this fruit, of course I will give him an explanation. Thank you, brother. Zhang Junlin walked back a few steps, reached out to stop Yuan Chen's shoulders, raised his eyebrows, and said with a smile, Yuan Chen, tell the truth, Haoshan and this mortal sent you to Zhongyuan Dao since you were a child. Zhong Chu, you haven't met them a few times and have no feelings for them. Now that they are gone, you just don't have the oil bottle. From now on, you can just follow me wholeheartedly, you know? Yuan Chen didn't hesitate much and said, thank you, senior brother. From now on, Yuan Chen will only belong to senior brother. However, no matter what, there is a blood connection between me and them, so I must destroy that Wu Yu. Don't worry. Zhang Junlin didn't pay much attention to Wu Yu. He smiled and said, this Wu Yu is really amazing. I don't know what luck he got, but he has made such rapid progress. I just got the list of the supervisors of the Immortal Kingdom, and he is here. Wu Du succeeded in taking revenge, and the timing was quite good. After the fruits matured one day ahead of schedule, they just collected the fruits and happened to get the list. On the way back, they got the news that Haoshan had been killed. Yuan Chen, do you blame me for not coming back with your father to make fruit? Zhang Junlin lowered his head and stared at Yuan Chen, asking with twinkling eyes. Yuan Chen trembled slightly and said quickly, absolutely not. I understand the importance of the fruit to you, and you don't know that Wu Yu is so powerful. Besides, the rhizome of the fruit is highly poisonous. You also wanted to collect it and let the sect leader make the poison elixir. In order to help my father, you came before you even had time to take the stem. Yuan Chen was extremely moved. He. As long as you understand how good senior brother is to you. Although the body was next to him, Zhang Junlin still smiled to himself. Yuan Chen continued, it was senior brother Zhang who gave me everything. In my heart, senior brother Zhang is much better than my parents. As for Yuan Hao, his fellow brother, he was just an inconspicuous ant in Yuan Chen's world, and Yuan Chen didn't bother to pay attention to him. Very good. Zhang Junlin patted his shoulder, feeling very good. He laughed for a while and then said, Wu Yu killed someone and fled far away. It will not be easy for me to catch him. How about I tie up hundreds of thousands of people in Wu City and hang them all, and force Wu Yu if he doesn't show up for one day, I will hang 10,000 people. What do you think? Yuan Chen trembled with fright and said, senior brother, please don't do this. Killing mortals will harm your merits. This will not be good for you to become an immortal in the future. They are all stupid rumors, and only fools believe them. To mortals, I am a god. As a god, how can I live up to my own abilities if I don't kill hundreds of millions of people? Zhang Junlin said with a smile. Senior brother, please don't joke about this. If the sect leader knows about it, he won't forgive you. Yuan Chen was anxious. I'm serious, I'm joking with you. Zhang Junlin was just teasing him, and seeing how nervous he was, he found it even more funny. At this time, a team approached them. Zhang Junlin had just returned on a crane horse. Many people saw that Yuan Chen was very respectful to him, and they knew that this might also be an immortal. Zhang Junlin and Yuan Chen looked over with unkind eyes. Who? A tall general knelt forward and said nervously, Prince Yuan Chen, and this immortal, I am Marshal Wu of Suqiao, the commander of the army. We have found Princess Wu. I guess it will be of use to you. So I brought it to you. Marshal Wu has always been Yuan 11's confidant. During this period, he vaguely heard Yuan 11's words and heard that Prince Yuan Chen seemed to have brought back a more terrifying immortal. So, he took the gamble. Princess Wu. Zhang Junlin and Yuan Chen looked at each other, and their eyes lit up. When Zhang Junlin reached out to grab it, a carriage in the team was broken into pieces, and a woman of great power appeared in it, which was Princess Wu. Whoosh! A huge force acted on Princess Wu, pulling her to Zhang Junlin's eyes. For a moment, her long hair was flying. Sure enough, it's her, Wu Yu's sister, and she has a very good relationship with Wu Yu. Yuan Chen smiled coldly. He was just wondering how to get Wu Yu to come to his door, when Princess Wu Yu appeared. We were just looking for her. She is not in Wushao Palace. Where did you find her? Yuan Chen asked. Replying to Prince Yuan Chen, it was in an inn in Xuanhuan town. It was brought by a man named Yuan Feng from your Yuan clan, Marshal Wu said while kneeling. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Okay, get out. Yuan Chen flipped his hand, and Marshal Wu and others rolled a few times and left their sight. At this time, Yuan Chen stared at Wu Yu with a gloomy face and was about to step forward. What? Zhang Junlin put Wu Yu on the ground, and then held down the impulsive Yuan Chen. Torture her half to death first, and relieve the hatred. Yuan Chen gritted his teeth and said. Zhang Junlin shook his head and said, I told you, it's just the death of two useless parents. Don't let hatred blind your eyes, relax a little, this is just a small matter, it's done, I don't like your angry look. Yes, senior brother. Yuan Chen took a deep breath. He knew in his heart that Zhang Junlin actually didn't take Haoshan Shangxian seriously. Not only did he not take it seriously, he also asked Yuan Chen not to take it seriously. But there was no way, he was a person who could cover the sky with one hand in Zhongyuan Dao section. If it weren't for him, what would he be? Zhang Junlin looked at Wu Yu with interest, smiled, and said, You are just a mortal, how can you not be scared to death when you see me? Wu Yu stood here and glanced at the three corpses on the ground. They were Wu Yu's great enemies. She obviously knew that Wu Yu had fulfilled his long-cherished wish for 2 years, and she was happy for Wu Yu. She glanced at Zhang Junlin lightly and said, You are just a mortal, just a little stronger, what's so scary? It's nothing more than killing me, but I'm not afraid of death, so why should I be afraid of you? In fact, she knew that the two people would definitely use her as bait to force Wu Yu to come. Wu Yu has already taken revenge, and the future is bright. As a sister, if Wu Yu comes back here and loses his life because of her, she cannot accept it. Now she hopes that Zhang Junlin and Yuan Chen will kill her quickly, so that Wu Yu will not have to die. At least Wu Yu thinks that even if she dies, there are 3 people buried with her on the ground, which is worth it. If it weren't for Wu Yu's return this time, she would have been tortured in the East God country. Hearing Wu Yu's words, Zhang Junlin smiled and said, It seems that you are quite great. It seems that you want to provoke me and let me kill you, so that Wu Yu will not come here to die, right? But I just can't let you do what you want. He easily pulled Wu Yu and jumped onto the city gate. At this time, the hemp rope on the beam had not been untied. Zhang Junlin used the rope that had strangled Yuan 11 to wrap around Wu Yu's neck and put her on a bulge on the city wall. He was imitating Wu Yu. If Wu Yu was not careful, he would fall from there and be hanged alive. Princess Wu Yu. Seeing the third person being hung there today, the people of Wudu panicked. In Wudu, at least 90% of the people care about Princess Wu Yu. They don't want Princess Wu Yu to die like this. Unexpectedly, after the death of Haoshan Shangxian, another Shangxian appeared. Today's turmoil is not over yet. Although the lives of mortals are fragile, everyone will cherish them. I don't believe you dare to commit suicide. If you have the guts, jump down. Zhang Junlin leaned on the city wall to stabilize himself, looking at Wu Yu with a smile. Wu Yu glanced at the sky. She knew that Wu Yu must be rushing here frantically at this time. Sorry, I was not careful enough and exposed my whereabouts. She smiled bitterly. But in any case, if the two people had to make a choice between them, she naturally wanted Wu Yu to live. Therefore, she jumped down from the bulge without hesitation. As long as she died, Wu Yu would be angry and would definitely seek revenge, but at least he didn't have to rush in. He could be patient. Wu Yu believed that he would not be so impulsive as to lose his mind, Otherwise he would not have entered Wudu with the demon monkey mask. The hemp rope gradually straightened. What a strange woman! Zhang Junlin was stunned. Most of the mortals he saw were afraid of death. He was the first one to see someone like Wu Yu who jumped down without saying a word. However, he would not let Wu Yu die. He stretched out his hand and grabbed her. Wu Yu was sucked up and returned to the bulge. Then he recited a few mantras, and many vines grew on the dry wall, which completely fixed Wu Yu here. In order to prevent her from biting her tongue to commit suicide, her mouth was sealed. You just need to watch, I will kill your brother. To be honest, I'm too lazy to do it, but I owe this little favor, and I can't do anything, haha. Zhang Junlin finished speaking in Wu Yu's ear and fell to the ground with a smile. Spread it out, tell Wu Yu that I will give him 5 days. If he doesn't come within 5 days, I will hang his sister here. Zhang Junlin's voice swept the whole city. In fact, when Wu Yu knew that Wu Yuzhen was hung on the city gate, he couldn't bear it even if it was just 1 day, not to mention 5 days. Zhang Junlin was still polite. No matter how far Wu Yu fled at this time, 5 days was enough for him to rush back. /U003CE /U003E /U003CE /U003F. Follow the official QQ public account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read first, and get the latest information at any time /U003C/E /U003E /U003C/E /U003E. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 69. In fact, when Zhang Junlin said these words within 5 days, Wu Yu was standing on the top of a house in Wudu. This is an inn with 3 floors. Standing here, Wu Yu can clearly see Wu Yu who is tied to the city wall by many vines. Standing in this position, her face is determined, and she is completely different from Yuan 11 and Yuan Hao. The difference. Elder sister. The anger of hatred had just subsided, and now Zhang Junlin was burning up again. Almost a step away. If he were faster, he could intercept Princess Wu Yu and stay away from here for the time being. Things have reached this level and are beyond Wu Yu's control. Although he took revenge, it was a coincidence that put Wu Yu into such a dangerous situation. There is no use regretting being careless at the time. After all, time was tight at the time and it was difficult to think things through perfectly. Wu Yu was also worried about Wu Yu at that time, so he messed up his sense of proportion, leading to such a tense and dangerous situation now. Fortunately, she has recently taken some fairy spirits to assist in her boxing practice. She has the first level of physical fitness in the body training realm. If she is mentally tough, she will stay here for a few days without leaving any injuries. She was afraid that Yuan Chen would be anxious for revenge and hurt her. Wu Yu was in the hands of the opponent at this time. The opponent had laid this trap and was waiting for Wu Yu to arrive, but Wu Yu did not lose his sense of proportion because of this. At this time, the sound of horse hooves came from below. It turned out that Marshal Wu was personally escorting Yuan Feng and others out of the city. If you want to seek death, I can't stop you. Wu Yu picked up 2 tiles and pointed them at the 2 people in front of him. One was Marshal Na Wu, and the other was dressed as a soldier. He should be Yuan Feng. It was these 2 little people who ruined Wu Yu's big event and created trouble for him. Big trouble. Whoosh. The 2 tiles passed through their chests. Suddenly, the 2 big men fell off their horses and lost their lives. Wu Yu changed his position, where he could clearly see Wu Yu, Zhang Junlin and others. Zhang Junlin was sitting cross-legged on the city wall, closing his eyes and concentrating. Yuan Chen had a complex expression on his face. He stayed beside him, not daring to move much, like a little maid. Zhang Junlin has at least the ability to reach the 4th level of Qi condensation realm, which is almost the same as senior sister Su. He is also the biological son of the Xuanhuan Taoist section. He has a huge amount of Taoist resources and life-saving means at his hands. The most I can do is defeat Hao Heavenly Immortal. If you fight him, you may not even have a chance of winning. After all, he only has one source of law. He clearly knows the gap. Moreover, maybe Zhang Junlin is at the 5th level of Qi condensation realm. If you go up there, you will die. If we don't go up, my sister will die in 5 days. Wu Yu was caught in a terrible dilemma. Is there any other way? With the gap between me and this Zhang Junlin, even if I save my sister and take her with me, I can't escape his pursuit. Without Tianyun Peng, I wouldn't have been able to return to the Bibo Mountains for help in just 5 days. Huge difficulties were placed in front of Wu Yu. Zhang Junlin has been cultivating since he was a child. He was personally trained by his sect master. He has seen a large market and has decades of experience. The gap between him and me is as big as heaven and earth. I am halfway through cultivating. How can I compete with such a being? Fighting. To be honest, when facing immortal Haoshan, Wu Yu was full of enthusiasm and had great confidence in destroying him. However, when facing Zhang Junlin, he felt powerless. This feeling of powerlessness is somewhat similar to the feeling of powerlessness that ordinary people feel towards the children of princes and nobles. After all, the other party has huge innate advantages and has been the proud son of the emperor since birth. Elder sister. If he can't find a way, in a few days, he will have no choice but to carry the demon-suppressing stick and fight this almost impossible battle. If I can hijack Yuan Chen, can I threaten him? After thinking about it for about an hour, the only solution was this. However, we can only think about it. Yuan Chen is not an idiot. How could he let Wu Yu kidnap him in this situation? Besides, there is no guarantee that I will be able to get close to them. Last time, Zhang Junlin used tarsal fire directly to burn into his bones from a distance. Headache. The more we are in a stalemate here, unable to make any progress, the more furious we become. This must be the will of the great sage equaling heaven in the body that is causing trouble. This being's will seems to have no awe, so why should I fear Zhang Junlin, just because of his noble birth? Even if it means death, we still have to fight. As a man, how can I let my sister be put in danger? The anger in his heart was boiling, and he was full of murderous intentions. Facing the imperial city, Wu Yu's eyes seemed to be burning with flames, and he growled, "It seems that we can only do our best." Desperately. Your little life is as fragile as a pastry. It will be gone if you try hard. You might as well eat it for me. Just when Wu Yu couldn't find any other way and was about to try the challenge, suddenly, such a voice came to his ears. Who? The man seemed to be very close to him. Wu Yu was so frightened that he turned around quickly, but when he turned around, there was nothing behind him. Who is pretending to be a fool here? Wu Yu lowered his voice, not wanting Zhang Junlin to find him. You stupid monkey, how dare you talk to your grandma and me like this? Wu Yu heard it clearly now. It was the voice of a girl about 10 years old. She was very immature, but she wanted to pretend to be grand and mature. She also called herself Grandma. Who is your excellency? Since you dare to speak, don't hide your head and tail. To be honest, only ascetics can have such means. Wu Yu had just stepped into the world of Taoism and knew in his heart that there were many Taoists and countless strong men in the world. Especially at this critical moment, he did not dare to be careless. Do you think I don't want to show up to your grandma? If I can show up, I will slap you twice first to let you taste how powerful I am. Grandma. The little girl sounded proud, but she was very proud. Wu Yu heard it clearly now. The sound did not come from outside, but actually seemed to come from his own body, and I was afraid that only he could hear it. This is terrifying. Could it be that the wronged soul that entered my body last time didn't disappear? After all, he grew up in the mortal world, and he still had a deep-seated dislike and fear of ghosts. Calm. Wu Yu took a deep breath. There was indeed no one around. He said, "Your Excellency seems to be in my body. Please stop joking with me. Who are you?" "Well, since you ask sincerely, then Grandma will tell you with great mercy. I remember back then, your grandma and I controlled the world and caused a catastrophe. Countless righteous people in the world were kneaded into dough by your grandma and me. Noodles, add a little braised pork, sprinkle with chives, eat them with noodles, the taste is really." "Who are you?" Wu Yu interrupted her nonsense. "How dare you disturb me when I'm eating noodles? Do you think you have a long life?" As soon as she was interrupted by Wu Yu, the little girl's voice became furious, as if she was interrupted by Wu Yu while she was eating. "If you are a senior in the monastic world, stop joking with me. Who are you and where are you now?" "I am Wu Yu, a disciple of the Tongtian sword sect, and I learned from Feng Xiai," Wu Yu said seriously. "That's all, Grandma is too lazy to tease you. Just wait, I can let you see me." Wu Yu was just wondering when a phantom suddenly appeared 1 foot in front of his eyes. Wu Yu was scared away and almost fell off the roof. When he stepped back, the phantom was like an image, always existing 1 foot in front of his eyes. That phantom was just like the ghost summoned by Ghost Lady. However, there was no ghostly aura of resentment. It was like a colored shadow, translucent in front of Wu Yu's eyes, but it did not affect Wu Yu's vision. After calming down for a while, he took a closer look and saw the faint shadow in front of him. It turned out to be the appearance of a year-old girl. She was very cute, with big and bright eyes, innocent and cute, and she could be described as bright eyes. She has white teeth, a pair of small braids dangling on her head, and 2 deep dimples. She wears a goose yellow jacket and has 2 bells hanging on her hands. Overall, she is the kind of little girl that makes people look at her and love her. However, what made Wu Yu a little speechless was that now the little girl was looking at Wu Yu with her hands on her hips and her head held high, and said with dignity, "Don't worry, others can't see me, because I don't exist. I just did some tricks in your eyes to make you seem to see my existence, Grandma." Sure enough, as soon as Wu Yu stretched out his hand, the palm seemed to penetrate the other person's body, without any feeling that she really did not exist. How is this possible? Wu Yu was extremely shocked. When did he have such a weird existence in his body? "You are making such a fuss. You are a stupid monkey who has never seen the world. By the way, monkey brains are indeed delicious, but you don't have them. It's a pity." The girl put her hands on her hips and didn't say a few words. The topic turned to food again. When she was talking, she seemed to be thinking about it, and she stretched out her little red tongue and licked it around her mouth. "Senior, please clarify my doubts for me. Although this girl looks very small, much smaller than when she first met Ching Mang, she feels that she should be an ancient person." Wu Yu thought a lot. Judging from his own experience, she was definitely not the wronged soul, so there was a certain possibility that it had something to do with the Ruyi golden cudgel. Sure enough, the girl suddenly smiled coldly and said angrily, "My name is Ming Long. 129,600 years ago, I was an unparalleled demon who made millions of ascetics fearful. /U003 CE /U003 E /U003 CE /U003 F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information /U003 C /E /U003 E /U003 C /E /U003 E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 70. Guy, Unparalleled Monster. Looking at this harmless-looking little girl, and then thinking of the image of an unparalleled monster in his heart, Wu Yu felt a certain confusion in his heart. What, you don't believe it? 120,000 years ago, a huge turmoil occurred in this world, known as the Minglong Rebellion. Humanitarians from all over the world came out. Countless monks chased me, Minglong, and was eventually killed by Grandma. I killed most of them, and there were millions of people lying dead. You haven't heard of it? Wu Yu shook his head in astonishment. He really had never heard of it. However, what the other party said was a bit unbelievable and seemed to be bragging, so he basically half believed it. Seeing Wu Yu shaking his head, the little girl named Minglong was extremely disappointed and said, "It is indeed a frog in the well. With your knowledge, even if it is made into a feast of frogs, it will not taste good. Why is this talking about eating again?" Ever since Minglong appeared, he has been a little confused. The shadow in front of him was really unbelievable to him. He could only try to ask, "Senior Minglong, are you related to the Ruyi Golden Cudgel? If there is, it should be a good thing." After all, Wu Yu is now in a huge dilemma. As long as he raises his head, he can see Wu Yu who is tied up and on the line between life and death. Minglong's eyes widened, he looked at Wu Yu with an innocent look, and said, "So you are not so stupid that you can't be saved?" "Yes, I was the previous owner of this stick. However, because of Minglong's chaos, I was killed. I was almost dead. I only had a little remnant of my soul or consciousness. I was swallowed into the stick. I couldn't live or die. I was tortured for eternity." Speaking of the back, you can hear a sense of loneliness. Really, 120,000 years. If so, spending 120,000 years in a stick would be really terrifying. The age of heaven and earth is 1 UN every 129,600 years. Since the Minglong Rebellion, 1 UN of time has just passed. Otherwise, how could you awaken the stick and become his candidate master? Mingtong rolled his eyes. Naturally, Wu Yu didn't understand the terms 1 UN and 2 UN. The history he could understand was only 10,000 years at most. In just 10,000 years, the surrounding countries have changed countless generations. What is a candidate master? The Ruyi Golden Cudgel was his biggest secret. When he mentioned this, he paid special attention to it. With your little ability, you have only obtained 1/10,000th of the secret of the great sage. You may be destroyed at any time. What else is it if you are not a candidate? I think back then, when I almost ascended to immortality, I was considered a where is the real master. Mingtong patted his chest and said proudly. Ascend to immortality. This sentence brought a deeper shock to Wu Yu. Unexpectedly, she was once so strong. Wouldn't that be much stronger than Wu Yu's master Feng Shui? At this time, Wu Yu actually believed what she said. The only thing he didn't believe was that Mingtong described himself as an unparalleled monster, but he didn't think it was like it. "Okay, your aunt, now that I have absorbed your magic power and awakened, I am not here to chat with you, I am here to do business with you." No wonder that after condensing the magic source, the magic power was always being consumed. It turned out that she had absorbed it. He can even absorb his own magic power. Obviously, Minglong's methods are very powerful. How to trade? Minglong was a little arrogant and said, "This is a very cheap deal for you. I think back then, your grandma and I almost became immortals before we got this treasure. Many methods have not had time to practice, and many methods require the cultivation of chi condensing immortal roots. I also missed it when you were cultivating in the golden elixir realm. You met me at the very beginning of your monastic career. Speaking of shit, I once visited a small world. The indigenous people there actually make cat poop into a drink, it's really disgusting." Wu Yu understood. It seemed that when talking to Minglong, he had to directly filter out the food-related words after her. Na Minglong made a lot of comments about that cat poop drink. After a long time, he realized that they were discussing a business. He cleared his throat, coughed twice, and said, "Let me ask you, do you have the qi condensation technique, Ju?" "I don't have it yet, but I will have it when I return to the Bibo Mountains. My master is the Golden Pill Immortal." Puff. Mingtaki laughed so hard that he couldn't straighten up. He looked very happy like that. Just a person from the Golden Elixir Deo realm actually calls himself an immortal, haha, I am laughing so hard. Just this little girl, one moment calling herself grandma, and the next calling herself mother, it's really. The other party seemed to look down on the Golden Elixir Immortal, but Wu Yu was too lazy to argue with her. "I'll give you a choice. I have one from this Ruyi Golden Cudgel. It's best to be the qi condensation technique that I started to practice at the first level of the qi condensation realm. I didn't practice it at the beginning. Its value is even more than that of the Vajra Immortal Cudgel. Bad body. The other one is given to you by your master, which one do you choose to use?" Wu Yu thought for a moment. She didn't even practice at the beginning. She should have already successfully condensed the qi and finalized it by the time she got the method. It's a method that can be compared with the indestructible body of Vajra. Boy, let me tell you, this is the most orthodox and domineering qi condensation technique in the whole world. It is unparalleled in the world. It was a peerless Taoist scripture that countless righteous people rushed to snatch up. If you don't choose it, you will regret it in the future and your intestines will turn green. Ming Tong blinked, feeling a little malicious. What conditions? Since it is said that it is a transaction, the other party should not give it to him casually. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Moreover, now, it is difficult for him to communicate with the Ruyi Golden Cudgel. He was worried before that whether this time of creation would end in the qi condensation realm. Finally waiting for this moment, Minglong put his hands on his hips and said with a weird expression, "It's very simple, I want to live, I want to taste all the delicious food in the world, I want to eat, 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 I, Minglong, will definitely come back to life. So, you have to promise me that you will bring me back to life in the future, I am almost dead now." Live. This deal was really unbelievable. Wu Yu could only shake his head and said, "This is impossible, I don't have such ability at all." "Shut up, you don't have this ability, Grandma, don't I know? Not now, but in the future when you ascend to immortality, maybe you will. Anyway, I can see that you are a gentleman. As the saying goes, a gentleman is hard to catch up with. If you promise me today, if you have this ability in the future, you must let me be reborn, otherwise I will curse you to never marry a woman, find a Taoist partner, and even if you do, you will have no chance of having a son." Minglong winked and threatened Wu Yu. To be honest, the so-called ascension to immortality is simply impossible. Also, if it really succeeds, do you have any specific methods? Wu Yu didn't want to lie to her, after all, he really didn't have the ability. "I don't have it." Minglong was furious. She had never seen such a serious person like Wu Yu. If it were her, she would definitely deceive the secret into her hands first. As for the matter of bringing the dead back to life, let's wait until it's done. However, this is why she made this deal with Wu Yu, because Wu Yu is a person who keeps his promises. "Stop talking, I don't care whether you succeed in the future or not. You just need to promise me that if you have the ability, you must find a way to bring me back to life, Grandma. If you swear, that's it." Wu Yu thought for a moment. After all, this was the other party who came to his door. As for what will happen in the future, who can tell clearly? He is a person who repays kindness. If Minglong gives him a fortune today, then even if he doesn't have to do this business or make an oath, if it is really possible for him to do it, he will work hard to do it. "Okay, I agree. After thinking for a while, Wu Yu made his choice. Very good, I'm very satisfied with you. Minglong finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the deal was done. To be honest, she felt that Wu Yu's character was a bit too serious, but it was this kind of sincerity that made her feel at ease. Listen up. Minglong closed his eyes, began to reverberate, and then began to recite. This world's #1 Qi condensation technique is called the Pin Celestial Immortal Technique. It is the secret to cultivating the foundation and developing the golden elixir. Condensation and essence Qi, get rid of evil desires. After completing the cultivation, you can gain access to the root of the spirit, cultivate your spiritual body, and become a heavenly immortal. The extraordinary way takes over the creation of heaven and earth, and invades the mystery of the sun and moon. After the elixir is completed, ghosts and gods will not be tolerated. Condensate Qi, become elixir, gain Tao, become immortal. Can this great immortal technique allow me to cultivate into a celestial immortal? When Wu Yu heard the introduction, he was indeed overbearing and terrifying, no less than the indestructible body of Vajra, which is all-powerful and immortal. That's right, if you can really succeed in cultivation, you will become an immortal. You can fly to heaven and become an immortal in heaven. You will live as long as heaven and live forever. Minglong is good at tempting. This is not just a method of condensing energy, it is simply a method of becoming an immortal. This passage made Wu Yu's blood boil. Today's conversation planted a seed in his heart. This seed is called immortality. Maybe Wu Yu had no goal in killing immortal Queen Haoshan. However, at this moment, he suddenly understood and the hut suddenly opened. The ultimate goal of cultivating Taoism is to become a true immortal with the same lifespan as heaven. Even if a mortal body is forged, even if one has martial arts and can reach the gods, the lifespan will only last 100 years. With the 10th level of Qi condensation and planting immortal roots, the lifespan is only 200 years. 200 years later, it will also disappear into smoke and turn into a handful of loess, and the body and soul will disappear. The records of Dongsheng Shenzhou records that even the golden elixir immortal with unparalleled greatness has a lifespan of only more than 300 years. After passing this limit of life and death, the body's essence will be lost, and his flesh and blood will wither and die. Only by becoming an immortal can one escape the reincarnation of heaven and earth and live forever. Wu Yu was afraid of death, especially after practicing Taoism. If you practice Taoism, if you don't want to become an immortal, then practicing Taoism is nothing. When immortal Haoshan was alive, Wu Yu's goal was to kill him. When Haoshan died, his vision broadened. He saw the endless heaven and earth, the vast rivers, the endless sea, and hundreds of millions of sentient beings practicing Taoism. The only goal is to attain Taoism and become an immortal. I, Wu Yu, must be an immortal who will live as long as heaven. To be honest, today's determination is the real immortal root, the real one is to plant the immortal root. \U003CE \U003E \U003CE \U003F. Follow the official QQ account 17K, ID, Love 17K, read early, and keep abreast of the latest information \U003C/E \U003E \U003C/E \U003E